Welcome to AgeWise. I've been gardening my whole life. From my first tomato plant in a cracked plastic pot to a full backyard bursting with herbs, flowers, and the occasional stubborn weed, I've seen it all. But I'll be honest, as the years go on, the garden doesn't change, and we do. Bending gets tougher, kneeling takes negotiation. And lifting a bag of mulch? That's a 2-day commitment. That's why I've learned to work smarter, not harder. Today, I'm sharing 42 practical gardening hacks that make life easier for us seasoned gardeners. They protect your joints, save your time, and keep you doing what you love without paying for it the next day. Some are simple, some are surprising, and a few, you'll wish you'd known them years ago. Let's get into it. Hack number 1. The milk crate miracle. It hit me on a warm spring morning. I was planting marigolds, feeling good, until I squatted down and couldn't get back up without grabbing the fence like it was a lifeline. That's when I realized kneeling was no longer part of the plan, so I started using a simple plastic milk crate as a mobile garden stool. Light, sturdy, and just the right height to save my knees. I flip it upside down when I need a little more height, and it doubles as storage for gloves and tools. Cheap, easy, and no more wrestling with the ground. But the real game changer came when I stopped using it only for sitting. Hack number 2, the rolling tool bucket trick. You know what's worse than bending down? Bending down over and over because your trowel's here, the pruners are there, and the gloves are back on the porch. So I got smart. I took a 5-gallon bucket, added a tool caddy around the outside, tossed in a few essentials, and set the whole thing on a rolling plant stand. Just like that, a garden toolbox on wheels. Now it follows me wherever I go in the yard. No bending, no forgetting, and best of all, it works as a mini seat in a pinch. That little rolling bucket has saved me more steps and sore hips than I can count. But there was still one enemy I hadn't conquered, and it was creeping in, one root at a time. Hack number 3, the no-kneel weed barrier. I used to think weeding was just part of the job. Then I realized, so is avoiding it. These days, I lay down thick layers of newspaper or cardboard under my mulch. Not only does it block sunlight to stop weeds cold, but it also breaks down over time, feeding the soil without lifting a finger. And here's the best part. It means less bending, less pulling, and a lot more time actually enjoying the garden, instead of fighting it. But if you think that's smart, wait until you hear what I do with an old kitchen spatula. That's coming up in hack number 4. Hack number 4, the spatula surprise. This one came out of pure frustration. I was trying to pop out a stubborn weed wedged between pavers, and nothing was working. I didn't want to scratch the stones or wreck my wrist. Then I remembered an old metal kitchen spatula sitting in a drawer. Flat, strong, with just enough flex. It slid right in and pried that weed out like butter off toast. Now I keep one in my garden bucket at all times. It's perfect for cracks, borders, and even lifting seedlings without damaging the roots, and it's not the only kitchen tool I've stolen for garden duty. Hack number 5, the muffin tin master plan. Spacing seedlings used to be guesswork until I pulled out my muffin tin, one press into soft soil and boom, perfectly spaced planting holes. It's fast, tidy, and keeps things looking professional without any measuring. Great for herbs, lettuce, flowers, and it works like a charm if your hands don't love fiddling with rulers or string anymore. And speaking of charm, there's something oddly satisfying about repurposing a baking tool to grow food instead of bake it. But the next hack, it's less about tools and more about staying safe under the sun. Hack number 6, the ice bottle shade trick. One summer afternoon, I got so wrapped up in pruning that I didn't realize how hot I'd gotten until the headache hit. That was my wake-up call. Now, I freeze a couple of water bottles the night before and keep them in a small cooler while I work. They double as cold compresses for the back of my neck and stay drinkable once they melt. And when it gets really hot, I hang a lightweight umbrella from a shepherd's hook to cast moving shade as I go. It's like building your own portable oasis, right in the dirt. And trust me, staying cool makes a bigger difference than any fancy tool ever could. Coming up next, a hack that turns an old yoga mat into your best friend in the flower bed. Hack number 7, the yoga mat cushion fix. I found it in the back of my closet, an old yoga mat I hadn't used since my maybe I'll stretch more phase in 2009. Instead of tossing it, I cut it into smaller squares and turned them into thick waterproof kneeling pads. Unlike those flimsy foam ones from the store, this actually lasts. I stash one by the flower bed, one in the shed and one in the garage just in case. It's soft on the knees, doesn't soak up water, and best of all, it costs me exactly nothing. But you don't need to bend down at all if you use the next trick. It's one of the smartest upgrades I ever made. Hack number 8, the raised planter shortcut. I used to love digging in the ground until I realized my back didn't. That's when I switched to waist-height planters. You don't need to buy fancy ones either. I built a few using stacked cinder blocks and old wood planks. Sturdy, no bending required, and they drain well. Perfect for herbs, salad greens, and anything you want to harvest without crouching. And here's the thing. When gardening becomes more accessible, it also becomes more enjoyable. You stop pushing through pain and start actually having fun again. And speaking of fun, the next trick involves a pool noodle. Yes, really. Hack number 9, the pool noodle grip fix. Those skinny tool handles might have worked fine years ago, but now, not so much. If you've got arthritis or just stiff fingers, gripping them for long is a struggle. Here's the fix. Slice a pool noodle. Lengthwise, wrap it around the handle and secure it with tape or zip ties. Boom! Instant comfort grip. Soft, lightweight, and easy on the hands. I've done it for trowels, rakes, even the handles of my watering can. Makes all the difference, especially after a long session outside. And if that sounded clever, wait till you see what I do with coffee filters and flower pots. Hack number 10, the coffee filter drainage trick. I used to dread repotting, mostly because of the mess. Every time I watered, soil would leak out the bottom, leaving muddy trails on the porch and wasting good potting mix. Then someone told me about this little gem. Drop a coffee filter in the bottom of your pot before adding soil. It holds the dirt in while still letting the water drain through. Clean, simple, and no root rot from blocked holes. It works like magic, especially for indoor plants or containers on your patio. And bonus, no more mess to clean up when you move things around. But if mess is your enemy, just wait until we talk about what to do with a cheap shower curtain. Hack number 11, the shower curtain ground cover. Here's a scene I know too well. You're planting a few flats of flowers, and before you know it, your knees are caked in mud and your tools are buried in grass. Now I keep an old vinyl shower curtain in the shed. When it's time to plant or transplant, I lay it right over the ground. It keeps everything clean, makes it easy to find drop tools, and rolls up in seconds when I'm done. It's waterproof, foldable, and way more durable than an old towel or garbage bag. Plus, it turns any patch of dirt into a tidy, ready-to-work space. No kneeling in wet grass, no chasing runaway bulbs across the yard. But speaking of runaway bulbs, ever lost track of where you planted something? Because this next trick might be the most satisfying of all. Hack number 12, the paint stick plant marker. I used to think I'd remember where I planted things. Peas over here, daffodils there, tomatoes in that corner. Then spring would roll around and I'd be staring at a mystery sprout wondering, did I put that there? Or is that a weed? Now I grab a few free wooden paint stir sticks from the hardware store, write plant names with a Sharpie, and stick them right in the soil. They're big enough to see from a distance, easy to label, and way cheaper than the fancy tags. And when I want something longer lasting, I coat them in clear nail polish. That sun and rain protection keeps them readable all season. No more mystery greens, just clear, simple reminders that help you garden with confidence. But here's the kicker, those sticks aren't just for labels. Coming up next, I'll show How I use one to solve one of the most annoying problems in container gardening. Hack number 13. The straw bale raised bed. A few seasons back, I stumbled upon a method that transformed my gardening routine: straw bale gardening. Instead of traditional raised beds, I started planting directly into conditioned straw bales. This approach elevates your garden, reducing the need to bend or kneel, which is a blessing for the back and knees. As the straw decomposes, it provides a nutrient-rich environment for plants, and at the end of the season, it turns into excellent compost for future use. It's a win-win: less strain on the body and a productive, fertile garden bed. Hack number 14, the ergonomic tool upgrade. Over the years, I've learned that the right tools can make all the difference. Investing in ergonomic gardening tools with cushioned handles and lightweight designs has significantly reduced the strain on my hands and wrists. Long-handled tools allow for better leverage and minimize the need to bend, making tasks like weeding and planting much more comfortable. Keeping these tools clean and sharp not only extends their lifespan, but also makes gardening tasks more efficient and enjoyable. Space hack number 15. The windowsill herb garden. There was a time when I thought gardening was confined to the outdoors. Then I discovered the joy of cultivating herbs right on my kitchen windowsill. Herbs like basil, mint, and thyme thrive indoors with adequate sunlight, providing fresh flavors for cooking year-round. This approach is especially handy during colder months or for those with limited outdoor space. Plus, having a mini garden indoors adds a touch of greenery and life to your living space, keeping the gardening spirit alive regardless of the season. Hack number 16, the laundry basket harvest helper. One summer, I went out to gather a few tomatoes and came back juggling zucchinis like I was in a circus act. That's when I realized I needed a better harvest system. Now I use an old plastic laundry basket. The holes allow dirt and debris to fall through, so I can rinse everything right inside the basket with the garden hose. It's lightweight, easy to carry, and perfect for bringing in a full day's harvest without needing 5 trips or a balancing act. And bonus, it doubles as a lightweight garden tote when you're planting out new seedlings. But harvesting's only half the battle. What about keeping pests out before they ruin the show? Hack number 17, the citrus peel pest deterrent. Slugs and ants used to think my garden was their personal buffet. That changed the moment I started using citrus peels. After I eat an orange or a lemon, I chop up the peel and scatter it around problem spots. The strong citrus scent repels many soft-bodied insects, and it naturally breaks down into the soil without harming your plants. It's especially useful near pots or raised beds, and it smells great to us, even if the bugs think otherwise. But the next hack? It's all about hands-free watering, and once I tried it, I never looked back. Hack number 18, the soaker hose setup. I used to stand with a hose, watering row after row like it was my job, until I realized it was my job and I was working too hard. Now I use a simple soaker hose, snaked through my garden beds and connected to a timer. It waters low and slow directly to the roots, with no waste and no effort on my part. I just set the timer and let it do the work while I enjoy my coffee. Less bending, less dragging hoses, more time enjoying the garden instead of babysitting it, and just wait till you hear what I use to protect seedlings during sudden cold snaps. That's up next. Hack number 19. The plastic jug frost shield. A few springs ago, I lost a tray of beautiful young pepper plants to a surprise cold snap. One chilly night was all it took. Since then, I've never been without a stack of empty plastic jugs. Whenever frost is in the forecast, I cut the bottoms off clean gallon jugs and place them over tender seedlings like mini greenhouses. The cap stays off so air can circulate, and the thick plastic traps enough warmth to keep those delicate plants from freezing. They're lightweight, reusable, and work like a charm. Plus, it feels good turning trash into a plant-saving treasure. Of course, there's another problem that sneaks up on all of us eventually, and it's not frost. It's the soil. Hack number 20, the bagged soil trick. Back when I had more energy than sense, I used to haul heavy bags of soil across the yard, slice them open, and dump them into raised beds by hand. Not anymore. Now, I just poke drainage holes into the bottom of the bag, lay it flat right where I want it, cut a wide slit across the top, and plant directly into the bag itself. It's tidy, it's easy on the back, and it's perfect for crops like lettuce or spinach that don't need deep roots. Plus, it keeps weeds out and moisture in. And when the season's done, I lift the bag, dump the leftover soil right into the compost and call it a day. But if you think that's clever, wait until you hear what I do with an egg carton and a few beans. Hack number 21, the egg carton seed starter. I've started seeds in just about every container you can imagine, but nothing beats a cardboard egg carton. It's biodegradable, easy to handle, and it breaks down right in the soil when you're ready to transplant. I fill each cup with a bit of potting mix, drop in a seed and water gently. When the seedlings are ready, I snip the cups apart and plant the whole thing straight into the ground. No transplant shock, no fiddling with root balls, just smooth, sailing from seed to soil. And while we're talking about easy transitions, let's talk about how to turn old kitchen scraps into your garden's secret weapon. Hack number 22, the free fertilizer in your freezer. Used to toss veggie scraps without a second thought, until I realized I was literally throwing away free plant food. Now I keep a small container in the freezer just for onion skins, carrot tops, coffee grounds, banana peels, and eggshells. Once it's full, I toss the contents into my compost bin or blend it with water to make a simple compost tea. It feeds the soil, boosts plant health, and costs nothing. Your plants don't need fancy fertilizer when you've got a blender and a bag of scraps. And the next time we dig in, I'll show you a trick that saves your back when watering big planters, especially if you've got to haul the watering can around the yard. Hack number 23, the hanging shoe organizer. Herb wall. One spring, I was craving fresh herbs, but had no energy for digging, bending, or prepping a full bed. Then I saw an old canvas shoe organizer hanging in the garage, and a light bulb went off. Filled each pocket with potting mix, tucked in a different herb, and hung the whole thing on a sunny fence. Instant vertical garden. It drains well, keeps things tidy, and best of all, you can harvest standing up. Basil, parsley, thyme, chives. I had a whole herb rack growing at eye level. No weeding, no pests, no backstrain. Just snip and cook. But what about heavier crops, like tomatoes? I've got you covered there too. Hack number 24, the cage to trellis tomato hack. Tomatoes love to climb, but traditional cages are awkward and tend to tip over the minute a strong breeze rolls in. So instead, I use a wall trellis or a piece of welded wire fencing, secured vertically to a pair of sturdy stakes. As the tomato grows, I tie it gently to the frame using soft plant tape or old nylons. It gives better airflow, easier harvesting, and takes up less space than cages. And best of all, no crouching to find hidden fruit. Everything's right at chest height, easy to reach, and even easier to enjoy. Speaking of space saving, you won't believe what I grow right on my back porch rail. Hack number 25, the railing riser trick. If you've got a balcony, deck, or even just a sturdy railing, you've got prime vertical real estate. I found a few long planter boxes designed to sit securely over railings. No drilling, no brackets. I use them for lettuce, radishes, spinach, even strawberries. Shallow-rooted plants thrive, and the built-in height makes planting and harvesting a breeze. And when I want a splash of color, Petunias and trailing ivy look gorgeous spilling over the edge. It's like having a mini garden at arm's reach, no matter how small your outdoor space might be. But the next one, this is for the folks who thought they were done with ladders. For good, hack number 26, the leaning ladder planter. Before you panic, no, you're not climbing anything. But if you've got an old wooden ladder lying around, lean it gently against a wall or fence and turn each rung into a shelf for small pots. You can stagger plants based on how much sun they need, keep watering simple, and avoid bending altogether. It's stable, stylish, and surprisingly efficient. I've grown everything from succulents to salad greens on mine, and if you paint the ladder, it adds a beautiful rustic touch to your garden space. Next up, let's talk critters. Because once your garden's thriving, guess who wants in on the feast? Hack number 27, the garlic spray defense. I once lost an entire patch of kale to aphids, tiny, sneaky, and absolutely relentless. And I wasn't about to start spraying chemicals around food I planned to eat. So I made garlic spray, crushed a few cloves, let them steep overnight in water, added a dash of dish soap, and sprayed it right onto the leaves. The bugs hated it. The kale didn't, and I got to harvest it all without sharing it with an insect buffet. It's cheap, safe, and surprisingly effective. Plus, your garden smells like you're prepping dinner, not a bad bonus. But bugs aren't the only thieves in the garden. Squirrels, I'm looking at you. Hack number 28, the motion trick for furry invaders. Squirrels, rabbits, even the occasional deer. They all have one thing in common: they hate surprises. So I tied a few old CDs to string and let them dangle from tree branches and trellises. When the wind catches them, the flashing light and spinning motion sends critters running. It's like a disco ball defense system. You can also use pinwheels, wind chimes, or even dollar store garden spinners. The movement and reflection make animals nervous, and they usually move on to easier pickings. But if you want to stop digging pests before they get into your soil, try this next one. Hack number 29, the fork and spoon barrier. It sounds odd, but it works like a charm. When I plant seedlings, especially in raised beds or soft soil, I stick plastic forks or spoons into the dirt with the tines pointing up. It keeps cats from using the area as a litter box, deters raccoons, and stops squirrels from digging. They're almost invisible once the plants fill in, but they make a big difference, especially in early spring when curious critters are on the hunt. It's not pretty, but it's effective, and sometimes that's all that matters. And when you want to keep pests out before they even land, you need to think like a plant. Hack number 30, the companion planting secret. Years ago, a neighbor told me, if you plant marigolds, the bugs stay confused. I thought she was joking. She wasn't. Certain plants naturally repel pests or lure them away from your crops. Marigolds, basil, mint, and nasturtiums can help deter aphids, beetles, and mosquitoes. I tuck them in between tomatoes, peppers, and cucumbers, and suddenly I'm dealing with fewer pests and more pollinators. And speaking of old tricks, the next set of hacks comes from Grandma's cupboard. Think vinegar, baking soda, and a few uses that might surprise you. Hack number 31, the vinegar weed buster. I remember trying to pull weeds from the cracks in my walkway one summer, sweating bullets and barely making a dent. That's when I reached for the vinegar. White vinegar, sprayed directly on weeds during a hot sunny day, will dry them out down to the root. No kneeling, no yanking, just a quick spritz and let the sun do the rest. It works wonders on driveways, patios, and between stepping stones. Just don't spray it near your precious plants, because vinegar doesn't discriminate. But weeds aren't the only thing vinegar can handle. Let's talk about what's clogging up your tools. Hack number 32, the rust-begone soak. I've had the same pair of pruning shears for over 20 years, and I plan to keep them another 20, thanks to one simple trick. When rust starts creeping in, I soak the tools in vinegar overnight. By morning, most of the rust wipes right off with a bit of steel wool or an old toothbrush. Finish with a little oil on the hinge, and they're as good as new. It's a quick job, and it keeps your tools working smooth without the cost of replacing them. Speaking of cost-saving magic, you won't believe what baking soda can do for your tomato plants. Hack number 33, the baking soda blossom boost. Tomatoes are picky. 1 minute they're thriving, the next they're dropping fruit or tasting a little off. So here's what I do. Once the plants start flowering, I sprinkle a tablespoon of baking soda around the base of each one. It lowers the acidity in the soil, just enough to sweeten the fruit. Not only does it help reduce fungal issues, but the tomatoes taste better too, like the old school heirlooms from back in the day. No fancy fertilizer, no science kit, just a pantry staple doing double duty. And if you've ever dealt with powdery mildew on squash or roses, the next trick is a game changer. Hack number 34, the milk and water mildew cure. The first time I saw powdery mildew on my zucchini leaves, I thought the plant was covered in dust. Then I realized it wasn't dirt, it was disease. Turns out a simple solution of 1 part milk to 2 parts water sprayed on the leaves can stop mildew in its tracks. It works as a natural fungicide and is safe for the plants, the bees, and you. I apply it every 7 to 10 days during humid months, and my garden stays clear, green, and thriving. But next up, we're going underground with tricks that protect roots, boost drainage, and take your container gardening to the next level. Hack number 35, the rock-free drainage layer. You've probably heard that putting rocks at the bottom of a pot helps drainage. Well, not exactly. Turns out that old advice can actually trap water in the soil above and cause root rot. Instead, I place a cut square of mesh screen, a coffee filter, or even a piece of an old window screen at the bottom of the pot. It keeps the soil in, lets the water out, and avoids that dreaded soggy root zone. Simple fix, huge payoff. And it makes repotting later so much easier. But if your containers are still heavy as bricks, the next hack is a literal weight off your shoulders. Hack number 36, the pool noodle pot filler. I used to drag huge pots around the patio like I was training for a strongman competition. Then I got smart. Now I slice up pool noodles or use crushed up aluminum cans in the bottom third of deep containers. It fills space, improves drainage, and cuts the weight in half without affecting the plant's root zone. Top it off with soil. Plant like usual, and you've got a lighter, better draining pot that won't throw out your back every time you move it. And speaking of root health, let's talk compost. But not just any compost. Hack number 37, the lasagna soil method. If you've ever struggled with poor soil or didn't feel like hauling in bags of compost, this one's a lifesaver. I build soil right in place using layers. Cardboard, kitchen scraps, dried leaves, grass clippings, then topsoil or compost. Like a lasagna, but for your plants. Over time, those layers break down into rich, fertile soil full of nutrients and happy earthworms. It's especially great for raised beds or container setups that need a boost. You save money, reduce waste, and end up with soil that feeds your plants for free. But what about roots that get cramped in containers? That's where the next trick comes in. Hack number 38, the air pruning pot hack. Root-bound plants are a real issue with containers. You pull them out and it looks like spaghetti in a knot, but with a fabric grow bag or a DIY version using breathable landscape fabric, roots hit the edge of the pot, stop and branch out instead of circling. It's called air pruning, and it creates stronger, healthier roots without ever needing to repot. Plus, these bags are light, easy to move, and perfect for tight spaces. Healthier roots, bigger yields, less work. Next up, let's head back above ground and talk clever watering tricks, because half the battle is knowing when and how to water without wasting a drop. Hack number 39. The wine bottle watering wand. I had a beautiful basil plant that always dried out while I was away for a few days. Now, I save old wine bottles. You only need one excuse to open one. Fill them with water and quickly flip them upside down into the soil. The water seeps out slowly, keeping the roots moist without overwatering. Works like a charm for potted plants, especially if you're forgetful or going on a weekend getaway, and if you want something reusable and more. Refined, they make terracotta spikes that do the same thing. But honestly, the wine bottle works just fine. Hack number 40, the morning-only rule. After years of watering whenever I remembered, afternoon, evening, sometimes in full sun, I finally stuck to one simple rule: water in the morning. It gives the plants time to absorb moisture before the heat of the day, reduces evaporation, and lowers the chance of fungus setting in overnight. Plus, it's a peaceful way to start the day. Birds chirping, coffee in hand, garden hose in the other. It's not just healthier for your plants, it's a moment of calm you didn't know you needed. But what if you just can't water every day? That's where the next one changes the game. Hack number 41, the mulch moisture blanket. You can water less often and still keep plants happy if you trap the moisture in. A few inches of mulch around your plants does exactly that. I use straw, shredded leaves, even newspaper in a pinch. It insulates the soil, holds in moisture, and blocks weeds all at once. Less watering, fewer weeds, healthier soil. What's not to love? And finally, my go-to move when everything feels like too much. Hack number 42, the skip-a-day, guilt-free system. Here's the truth. Some days the knees ache, the sun's too hot, or you just don't feel like gardening. That's okay. That's why I've set up my garden so I don't have to do everything every single day. Between soaker hoses, mulch, raised beds, and those sneaky little wine bottles, I've given myself permission to skip a day, without guilt and without harm to the plants. Because gardening should work for you, not wear you out. If one of these tips made you think, why didn't I try that sooner? Then go ahead and give that like button a little nudge. And if you've got a gardening trick of your own, I'd love to hear it in the comments. Subscribe if you want more smart, down-to-earth advice just like this, made for real people with real knees and real gardens. Now go enjoy your garden. You've earned it.